This is At Ease, the military podcast of Thomas Nelson Community College. I'm Gary Pounder, a member of the military team here at TNCC, and on today's installment of the podcast, we have part two of our conversation with Mike Kuhns, who's the chair of the Thomas Nelson College Board. We're going to be talking about where he sees the college headed over the next 5 or 10 years, changes that he believes are going to be necessary here at TNCC, and his vision for the future of the college. Our conversation, part two of our conversation with Mike Kuhns, begins right now. Before we get into, what lies ahead for Thomas Nelson, I want to talk to you briefly about the Thomas Nelson Board. You're obviously the chair now. You've been on the board for a while. Everyone's familiar. They know that colleges and universities have a board that helps to oversee the running, the management of the institution. But tell us, what basically is the mission of the Thomas Nelson Board and the role the board members play? And also something that we've talked about off mic, how has the role of the Thomas Nelson Board evolved in recent years?
In Virginia, and this is very different from Illinois or Idaho, in Virginia, the College Board, the Thomas Nelson College Board, is actually an advisory board to the State Board of Community Colleges. And in its role, it's also charged with being the liaison between the college community and its appointing authorities, meaning the cities and counties that appoint us. We have 4 representatives from Newport News, 4 from Hampton, 2 from York County, 2 from James City County, 1 from Poquoson, and 1 from Williamsburg. So there are 14 board members. Very interesting. Kind of, who breaks the tie, but we've never had to test that. So that's good. I think it's in the past. The other thing I forgot, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. The College Board is also, there's 2 other things that are really important. One is it manages local funds. The college is funded in 2 ways, from state funds, which come out of the chancellor's office, and local funds, which come from the communities. And those local funds generally are for programs and facilities that directly impact the students, but also maintenance of property beyond 5 feet from the state buildings. It's kind of weird, but parking lots, those kinds of things. And then, bookstores and student activities, those types of things. So the College Board has that. The other thing it does, it evaluates the college president. We send that evaluation to the chancellor for the part of the evaluation. You might say that, the College Board doesn't have a lot of power. It really probably doesn't, but in statutory power, but it has a lot of power if it is influential and if it is serving the community well and is well-meaning. So I think this particular board, since I've been involved, we know where the territory is. We know we have not gotten in somebody else's sandbox, and we focus on that a lot. And the senior management and the college president, it's all about communication. If we talk about it and say, hey, I've got this idea, I think, but tell me if I'm out of line here. And it's all about back and forth conversation and dialogue. And so we help each other. I mean, our whole purpose, though, is to be a resource to the president and to the college. And so, in the past, you asked how it has changed. In the past, the College Board was, I think I've used the term sleepy, and that's probably true. It wasn't utilized particularly very much by the leadership. Now the College Board is engaged, it's awakened, it's participatory. I think Zoom meetings have created a lot of it because from a time constraint or whatever, and also just an exposure, the College Board members are very active in attending town hall meetings and if there's performances or whatever. And they're seeing really what the college is all about at a much deeper level and how it really can impact the wide variety of interests within our region. So they've become engaged. We've also engaged them internally by restructuring the board from the standpoint of there have always been committees, but we kind of split some up. So we gave more people an opportunity to serve in a broader base of areas. And we also created a leadership succession that if somebody wishes to go up a leadership track and eventually be vice chair or chair, they need to be a committee chair beforehand. They need to serve on the finance committee. They need to have a background so that they can help become a better resource for the executive. And we also put in place an executive committee. We haven't had much opportunity because of COVID to function, but we will get there. And that's the chair and the vice chair and the committee chairs, as well as an immediate past chair if one exists on our board. So we can have some continuity from the past and put them together. And our big task now will be to redesign the presidential evaluation process, which was probably nothing more than a self-evaluation in the past and wasn't really goal-orientated, didn't meet the expectations of what the community has thought or what the board has thought or the faculty has thought. So we're going to be working with Dr. Brannon, and it should be a back-and-forth dialogue with the president, the executive, and develop a process that is meaningful for her as well as for the college and the community.
You mentioned earlier that the board played a very important role in the selection of Dr. Tawana Porter Brannon as our new president here at Thomas Nelson. Talk about that process, talk about how the board was engaged, and maybe some of the takeaways that the board and you as a board member, board chair, gained from that experience.
Wow. That was like a 14-month process. Began a year ago, July, I think it was. And it started out with the chancellor had asked that I appoint 4 people to represent the board in the initial screening and selection process up until the finalists. So I did that. I included myself, and that's normally the case. Myself, the vice chairman, the chairman of finance, as well as the chair of the curriculum committee. And that made a lot of sense. And we began over the course of, we received training on inclusion, diversity, and equity. Then we initially screened 92 applications. That was very, just a lengthy process. These academicians really like to write a lot about themselves. And, they're semi-novels, but it's still interesting. So we reviewed 92 of those. We brought that down to 12, I believe, 12 semifinalists. And those semifinalists are vetted to speak of some way by the state. The selection committee included the 4 of us from the local board, as well as members of the chancellor's cabinet and some presidents from other colleges across the state, as well as senior faculty representatives. And so then we boiled them down to 4 finalists. The 4 finalists then are a major background check is done by an outside firm, and they are all certified to being capable of being the next president. And that's an interesting process. And so then when the 4 were certified, after hours of interviews and that, I think our longest Zoom meeting was about 8.5 hours long, and it was a killer. And then we brought we created a presidential transition task force here. And it had board members, and it was primarily run by one of the vice presidents, Dr. Rarick. And that was to get all the candidates here, schedule them, do all the logistical stuff, just a nightmare.
And you're doing all this in the middle of a pandemic.
Exactly. And they did an outstanding job. And then in the meantime, okay, how do we interview? Do we do face-to-face? Do we do video? Well, some board members did not want to go face-to-face, so we did a combination, a hybrid, and the technical staff at the college is just amazing. Student government leaders were amazing. Everybody really jumped in, and we finished that up, and then the board deliberated and passed along its recommendation to the chancellor, and the chancellor named Dr. Porter Brannon as the next president. So we were all excited for Dr. Porter Brannon, and we were really excited for ourselves, too, that this whole thing's over. And we're quite confident that the decision that was made, that the chancellor made, was very it will do us well going into the future.
You mentioned earlier that with the arrival of a new president and with other things going on, kind of a chance now for Thomas Nelson to turn the page, to rebrand, to reorient. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you see facing Thomas Nelson. Obviously, enrollment has been an issue here at the college for several years now, something that obviously Dr. Porter Brannon's going to have to deal with, that the entire staff, faculty is going to have to deal with as well. Beyond enrollment, what do you see as being the major challenges lying ahead for Thomas Nelson?
Well, beyond enrollment, there's enrollment, and then there's more enrollment. But we have had financial challenges. We will still have financial challenges. We're in much better shape than we were a few years ago. We're really strong with the appointment of a new vice president of finance and administration, and we have relationship challenges over the years. The external relationships have somewhat waned, and maybe hasn't really kept up with what's really going on with the community and with our region and service area. Internal relationships also. We need a culture change, and I think, and I've said this at board meetings and at some of the town halls. I think the COVID, as bad as and as disruptive as it has been a blessing for us. It made us think about what it is we have to do and how we can move ahead. And with that, we've developed a new sense of trust amongst ourselves and productivity. And I keep saying, I've known these people for 10, 15 years, but who are they? I don't know them as they execute today, because they've all really jumped in 120%. So it's really cool to see that happen, and very exciting, and a good thing for Dr. Brannon when she comes. I think, I've told you before, it's like realtors, location, location, location. It's enrollment. We need to, that helps solve a lot of things. Personnel matters. It solves financial matters. Most importantly, it solves workforce matters. We need a skilled workforce to be able to attract, retain, and expand businesses in our community. And without that, nothing happens. Businesses, site selectors go elsewhere. Companies go elsewhere. We cannot afford to do that. I think one of the challenges in our region is we've never really had to kick in our survival instincts because of the heavy dependence on Department of Defense funding, as well as a lot of social entitlements. And that made us different than the Midwest, where when you mentioned before, the Caterpillar dropped from 42,000 or so to 24,000. It was like turn out the lights, last person leaving, turn off the lights. But we kicked in our survival instincts there and transformed Central Illinois into something it wasn't a few years back. So I think that's one of the issues here. There isn't this sense of urgency to do anything. I know we've talked about regional collaboration and cooperation for the 20 years that I've been here. And it perhaps it's improved in some areas, and in most cases it's probably study after study. Much of it's saying the same thing with different words. That's the challenge, but I believe Thomas Nelson can become a catalyst and a focal point for small business development, for workforce development, and yet maintain the academic responsibilities it has for the 2+2s and the associate's degrees, the credentialing, the whole environment of whether or not somebody has a degree or not to go to work for an employer has changed dramatically. There are very high-paying jobs at NASA that don't require a degree, but they require stacked credentials and very technical. We just haven't explored those internships, those apprenticeships with JLab, NASA, really the shipyard. I sort of wish I think Dr. Brandon's going to have a great deal of fun because she's a very energetic, very passionate, very outgoing person, and she will seize the opportunities. You don't have to make them up here. We have the opportunities. We just need to seize them and place them in the right places in relation to our mission.
And I guess that leads to the obvious question. You mentioned earlier that you don't see that sense of urgency necessarily here in Virginia because we have that huge DOD funding cushion that kind of provides the foundation for the local economy. You didn't have that back in Central Illinois. So when Caterpillar was going through some really tough times, almost 40 years ago, you had to kick in the survival instinct. I guess what I'm asking is, how do we create that sense of urgency here locally? And then secondly, how do we make Thomas Nelson that catalyst that you were talking about a moment ago?
I think we need to. I don't know if we need to create a sense of urgency. I think in our underserved population, which is quite large, I think we need to create a sense of hope, and it's our job to educate people as to how we can fulfill and satisfy the need for hope and where hope would take them. And I don't see us as doing that very well. We need to shed the institutional marketing approach, or we need to spend some money on marketing and on the message of what a community college education can bring to you. And we have to remember we have a number of audiences. We've got the traditional high school graduate who may want to choose 2 years at Thomas Nelson and move into a 4-year. So we have a great 2+2 programs. We have a military who come here and are stationed here, and their spouses and dependents. We have people who just maybe do not wish to get a baccalaureate degree or even an associate's degree, but have the aptitude for a certain skill or a level of certification. We have that. And then we have the workforce, the employers sending people to us to improve, to close the skill gap in their workforce. This isn't a one-thing-fits-all here, and I don't think we market ourselves as an institution as opposed to products and services. I think we need to. I think when my first meeting, I said this when I was elected chair. I said, this is not business as usual. This is business. However, we are a business, and we should operate like a business. We serve the business community, and we should become the catalyst for that. And we can do that because we have resources with the entire state educational system, the entire state employment system, the Veterans Administration, the bases, the military installations. It's all here. We just need to take advantage of it.
You mentioned the military population. I'm glad you brought that up because the military, some would argue, has been an underserved market here at Thomas Nelson. We're in the middle of one of the largest military communities in the country, 25,000 active duty at a minimum here on the Tidewater Peninsula. When you factor in dependents, spouses, retirees, veterans, that number swells to well over 100,000 people. From your perspective as the board chair, what can Thomas Nelson do better in serving that military population?
Well, I know the competition is great. We have a lot. We have for-profit educational organizations. We have extensions, if you will, from outside the state here. But I think Thomas Nelson, I think it is marketing, and it can be. For us, it's really important because if we extend ourselves and people and use our services, and in that process, we teach them more about the area for those service members who are either retiring or first-termers who are getting out, or those who, for whatever reason, decide to separate under honorable conditions. We want those people to stay here. They are well-trained, they're disciplined, they're loyal, they've proven themselves as team members. We want those as employees working for our employers. So I think we not only sell Thomas Nelson, but we sell the community at large, and that puts us in a catalyst mode or in a position. I don't think we've approached it that way. We've said, okay, here's our menu of veteran services, come on, come all, and that's the end of it, I think. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we seem to fall short of really making an aggressive move to go after them, and I think we need to do that.
I think you're exactly right, and I think that's also where the catalyst role comes in, because there is no shortage of services, programs, opportunities for military members, military dependents, veterans, retirees here in the local area. In fact, there's so many, it's hard to keep track of all of them. But, how do we put together kind of a holistic approach so the service member or the dependent, the retiree, the vet winds up in the right program that's going to lead him or her down that desired career path and get them a job, a career, more importantly, that is going to hopefully keep them here in Hampton Roads and contributing to the local community.
I agree. That's what has to happen. We have tried that in the past. I think it's been somewhat external. I think you'll recall during my tenure at the Chamber, when Admiral Harvey was the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, he had a big program for transitioning service members. But when he left, his successor had, times change and interests change. I think that would have been a perfect time for Thomas Nelson to step in. It was focused then around the Military Advisory Committee of the Council of the Peninsula Chamber, but I think because Thomas Nelson has all these connections on a daily basis, it's a perfect catalyst for many of these things. And it isn't the point that hey, look at us. It's the point is that this is what we can do within our realm. And make it a better community. At the same time, we can offer the educational services, and obviously you coordinate with William and Mary and ODU and all the other higher ed institutions as necessary. But I think the focus really, in large part, our employers are hurting for a skilled workforce, and if we don't jump on that bandwagon, the world's going to pass us by.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we kind of wrap things up here, Mike, let's talk about your perspective on what lies ahead for Thomas Nelson. Where do you see the college in 5 years or even 10 years down the road?
Well, I think in 5 years we will have rebranded ourselves, hopefully. We will have renamed our buildings as consistent with whatever the state board is happy with. And I think our new buildings will have been built and the older ones demolished, so we'll have a nice, healthy place and clean and state-of-the-art for students to come to. Enrollment hopefully will increase in those 5 years. I also think we can probably become the catalyst for advancement. Whether it's individual advancement or corporate advancement, community advancement. I think that's what we should work for. 10 years down the road, I think probably it'd be nice if we could have our advanced integrated manufacturing facility up and running in 10 years, and perhaps locate in Newport News. And at that point, we would have facilities and bricks and mortars in our major communities, as well as close to the underserved population and the population that would use the facilities and needs to use the facilities. There are other avenues I think, immediately, and it may take some time, but to develop internships and apprenticeships with our partners at NASA and JLab and VIMS and actually ODU. They did a lot of research there. I think, we can. The HT campus, Historic Triangle campus, already has health science programs, but there's maybe opportunities in fire science, and working with the City of Newport News in the Regional Fire Academy, as well as perhaps the law enforcement, and maybe take some fiscal pressure off of the cities in providing training, and we're in the training business. It just makes sense to collaborate with them and even partner with them in providing those services. Who knows, maybe we could become an East Coast hub for fire science or local law enforcement training. Those types of things, it's all here.
What about some of the newer fields that are really hot right now? For example, what kind of role do you see for Thomas Nelson in cyber, in unmanned systems, and also in aviation?
Well, that is interesting. You brought up aviation because we have talked at the board level. We had talked amongst ourselves about the fact of many community colleges teach commercial aviation, and there is a shortage of commercial pilots. And we have an Air Force base here and people with a propensity for flying, that type of thing. And we have an airport that could certainly use
more traffic,
diversity of income, that type of thing. So there is an opportunity that could be explored there. I think that's true. With Hampton and the recent announcement by Hampton and the development of an unmanned systems facility for Newport News shipbuilding, there we go. I mean, there's another opportunity. I think we certainly can do that. And then you can certainly collaborate with Tidewater as well as Paul DeCamp in the offerings that they have, logistics, and Tidewater is now has ship repair. So these types of things, and as you probably know, the Chancellor has created a collaborative workforce development consortium between the three colleges. And I think that is a good opportunity, and I hope that can be a catalyst for it's really not regionalism, it's a catalyst for collaboration. I think this regionalism, they ought to throw that word away and just talk about collaboration, working together first, and then whatever that brings you, have at it. But
where do you see Thomas Nelson going in online learning? Obviously, COVID-19 has compelled us to put the vast majority of our offerings online. It's a huge market out there, especially with our military population we were talking about a moment ago. What role do you see in virtual learning playing for the future of Thomas Nelson?
I guess this is a wish list, kind of a Christmas Dear Santa list here. I can see it, particularly with the military. Get a military member started here and let him continue as he goes across the world and serving the country, and still keep him as a student. I think as far as the broadband can reach, I'm sure our faculty and staff would present the programs necessary to meet people's educational needs. And I think not very many communities have the opportunity for that kind of an international scope. It's ready-made for us. And speaking of international, we have an awful lot of international residents in our area at the various installations, cross-training, that type of thing. It's an amazing opportunity for online teaching, and I understand that from the faculty, many of them want to get back into the classroom because they like the face-to-face, and I understand that. But many of them also really have fallen into really enjoying and doing an excellent job in online training. So I think we need to take advantage of those opportunities also in developing, a vision for our future.
Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking time to appear on the podcast today.
Thank you very much, too. I appreciate it anytime.
We certainly have had a great conversation here. We've been talking with Mike Kuhns, who's the chair of the Thomas Nelson College Board and a very vibrant member of the local community, been in a leadership role in a number of capacities for many, many years, and probably even for a few more years to come, even though he's trying to do that retirement thing as we speak. In the meantime, I want to thank you for listening. This has been At Ease, the military podcast of Thomas Nelson Community College. I'm Gary Pounder. Thanks for listening.